Good day, fellow investors. We have recently discussed a few Chinese stocks and how Chinese stocks offer value. Ray Dalio, Bridgewater have been pretty loud about diversifying into China, into Asia, and I recently did Baidu, and a few months ago I did Alibaba. And when I compare Baidu to all other companies, especially companies in the Western world, Alibaba, it's extremely cheap from a valuation perspective, let's say Alibaba compared to Amazon. So really Alibaba seems very undervalued. We have also Tencent, undervalued, compared to all other companies that I have analyzed over the past 2 months. So we have Baidu. You can download this template, play around, see if there are some companies of interest for you, but these are Chinese companies, many of those listed on US stock exchanges, and that leads to a lot of questions about listing. And I received a lot of comments about, Sven, aren't you worried about this American depository receipts being delisted from American exchanges? Speaking about comments, just some housekeeping here. There are a lot of spammers using my name, my picture, and trying to sell you some cryptocurrencies through WhatsApp. Please avoid doing that. Please avoid communicating. And my name, my comments are always highlighted. So please keep that in mind. However, if we look at Charlie Munger's Daily Jordan 13F, he just bought 19% of his portfolio, he just bought Alibaba. And if we look at what he owned, those are sponsored American depository shares. But the Securities Exchange Commission will start implementing a law signed by Trump that will force some companies to delist. And we have also already seen the Chinese telecoms forced to delist from American exchanges because owned by the Chinese government. The new Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act will force companies to delist if they fail to comply with US auditing standards for 3 years in a row, and they will have to delist if they are owned or controlled by an entity of a foreign government, and will not be allowed to have board members who are Chinese Communist Party officials. Of course, these are not so crazy standards, especially if we exclude legal Chinese issues where some companies will not be allowed to declare all what the SEC requires, but these are more, let's say, noise than reality that is there. And that's also, I think, a reason why Charlie Munger bought, because he said, okay, all this negative sentiment might be just noise that will pass over time, and Chinese stocks, as we have seen on my list, are cheaper than Western counterparts. I would also say it is a money thing. So if we look at Alibaba, the depository receipt services from Citi, they charge you a fee every year for holding those. They have received a lot of money. If we look at Alibaba's listing prospectus, we have the sponsored banks Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and Citi. And just think of all the brokerages, the big investment banks, and getting all those fees from the trading, from all the capital that comes from around the world into these Chinese companies listed on the bigger stock market of the world. So if the American government brings the stock away from the US government, what do these companies do? We have seen yesterday how Baidu simply listed itself in Hong Kong and said, okay, if you don't want me, we'll list somewhere else. And this is actually, such sanctions are actually a long-term threat to the power of the US stock market. So I think there will be a lot of negotiations there, and if all Chinese companies are forced to be delisted from US exchanges, then I think we will have much worse things to worry than our stock investments. Nevertheless, when it comes to investing, if you have significant amounts of money, find a good broker, and you can also always exchange these stocks. If you have Alibaba, if you can call your broker and you can have them exchange for the same stock in Hong Kong. That can be done, so that's also a protection against delisting. So you have to always be a little bit flexible, also depending on the amount of money you have invested, because for small parts, for these cheap brokers, you can't expect any service. But if you have a big broker, if something is delisted or goes OTC, they simply change the ticker there, and then there is no issues. Also, as always, really think of the specific risks out there when it comes. I personally don't think there will be delisting issues, but if there will be, of course, I'll be buying in Hong Kong. That's a simple solution for me as an international investor. So simply avoid the risk if you can buy in Hong Kong. And then when the American regulators see that they are losing business, when investment banks see that they are losing business, I think the situation will settle and things will return to normal. I'm looking forward to your comments to this delicate topic, and I'll see you in the next video. Tomorrow we'll discuss JP Morgan's guide to markets, update a little bit on the news, and I'll try to prepare a stock for Sunday.